Hello everybody, Josh12 back here again with another video, and today I bring you another comic book movie topic. Now, of course, earlier today I gave you a video titled Matthew McConaughey Talks to Marvel and DC, which is basically me discussing him possibly being in a superhero comic book movie, whether it be Marvel or DC. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Nonetheless, I'm here to talk about George Miller possibly directing a comic book movie, specifically a DC Cinematic Universe movie. Now, of course, for those of you who don't know, quick history lesson: George Miller, who is the director, the creator, if you will, of the Mad Max franchise. He obviously directed Mad Max Fury Road, which I personally feel is, as of right now, the number one movie I've seen all year. Personally, if you've not seen my review of it, please go to my channel, check it out if you loved it. But for me, it personally tops everything I've seen before. Nonetheless, back into topic, George Miller was originally supposed to direct the first ever Justice League movie. Yes, before the current DC Cinematic Universe, before the Dark Knight, Chris Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, before even Marvel Studios, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. George Miller was supposed to direct a Justice League film titled Justice League Mortal, if I'm not mistaken, which was obviously supposed to be the first ever cinematic viewing of these characters brought together to take down a threat. And of course, that never really happened because of, obvious production delays, and not to mention the Writers Guild strike, and on top of all this, of course, the massive universal success of Chris Nolan's The Dark Knight, which led Warner Brothers to pursue his story instead of going on other movies, which I don't think was the great decision. I mean, granted, Chris Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy was awesome, but you have an entire DC universe out there that's hardly been touched upon. I mean, we're just getting into it right now, which is kind of sad. But nonetheless, he was the first guy to direct this franchise, and it never really happened. And now that he's back in the helm of the director's chair, I personally want to see him go back and freaking do a DC Cinematic Universe movie. And which movies, you ask, what he could play as director as? I say I actually talked to Paul about this because I saw him recently. I think specifically the two number one movies that really speak to me that I think would be perfect choices for him to direct, that I know he could direct perfectly, has to be a tie between the Aquaman movie, which is, obviously Jason Momoa playing Aquaman, which comes out, I want to say before or after, I think after the first Justice League film directed by Zack Snyder, or one of the hopefully many Justice League movies that come out. Now, for me personally, you have to have an endgame, and you have to have a massive war of biblical proportions where all these League members have to team up and try and take down a threat. And what kind of threat is that? Darkseid. Darkseid is, as we all know, is the Thanos of the DC universe. Hell, Thanos was inspired basically on freaking Darkseid in and of itself. So, of course, he's the granddaddy of them all. And it only makes sense that he should be an endgame kind of final boss kind of villain for the DC Cinematic Universe. Now, I don't really know how the DC Cinematic Universe is going to go in towards. I mean, we've yet to see Batman v Superman or Suicide Squad, and we don't know if Brainiac or whoever the hell is going to be the main villain for the first Justice League movie. We just don't know. But for me personally, if Warner Brothers is going to play this correctly and smartly, which I hope they do, Darkseid you should put a hold on him. Put a pin on him. Just wait a while. I'm not saying you should never portray him anywhere, but I'm just saying, don't make him the full-on final boss yet. For the first Justice League movie, you could do it, because, it's not the end of the world if they did it. I just don't think it's the greatest decision to go by, because, after Man of Steel, you have to learn that after having, the strongest villain right off the bat in the first freaking movie, I don't know, it could serve as the best catalyst for a franchise. But nonetheless, that being said, I personally think if Zack Snyder plans on directing, I guess, the first two parts of the Justice League movie, why not have a Justice League movie being directed by George Miller? George Miller, he's a great director. And he's proven that he's still here to freaking direct great, epic, badass movies. And I think he could do a great job. I mean, he's just killing it right now. and he's just made possibly the #1 movie of the year so far. I just personally think that if there was a possibility that Warner Brothers can sign him on to do other projects other than Mad Max sequels, I think it should be a DC Cinematic Universe movie, and I think it should be one of the Justice League films. You know, I mean, Zack Snyder's directing the first two, and you never know, maybe he'll drop out of one of them. You know, it depends on whether or not he's, you know, fully going to be doing all of them. It really depends on how Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad really do. You know, that's all it really comes down to. But at the end of the day, I personally still feel that George Miller should direct one of them. And if not the Justice League movie, I think he should direct Aquaman. I mean, like, look what he did with Tom Hardy. I mean, he directed a badass fucking actor and made him just so badass. He didn't even need to speak. He had like less than, 5 words he said in that movie, and he was still a badass. So that just proves that if he could do that to Tom Hardy, only who can even speak of what he could do or tell what he could do if he was directing Jason Momoa, who is another real cool badass, in a freaking big comic book movie adaptation of freaking Aquaman, the King of Atlantis, King of the Seven Seas. So that's what I personally think. Let me know what you personally think in the comment section below. And of course, before I end this real quick, I was kind of thinking like, okay, well, Mad Max Fury Road was awesome. It was a badass film of biblical proportions. Now, if Darkseid, who I personally think will indeed be in the DC Cinematic Universe at some point, whether it be the first Justice League movie or, the last Justice League movie or Part 2 or Part 3 or whoever the fuck knows, I personally think, after seeing Fury Road, wouldn't it be cool or really awesome if the actor Hugh Keys Byrne, who acted as the main villain for Mad Max Fury Road, who played the character Immortan Joe, wouldn't it be cool if he did Darkseid? I don't know why, but every time I look in retrospect at his character in that movie and listen to and just look at his physicality, look at his action, the way he speaks, the way his presence, he had a real Darkseid kind of thing going on. I mean, like, he was scary as the villain of that movie. And if he can bring that to Darkseid, I think that would be a magnificent choice. That's just me personally. So what do you personally think in the comments below? Who do you think should play Darkseid in the DC Cinematic Universe? Who do you think, do you think George Miller deserves to direct a DC Cinematic Universe movie? And if not, which movie could he be directing if you would want him to? I personally say it's a hand toss between Aquaman or one of the Justice League movies. And I hope if he does direct one of the Justice League movies, it features Darkseid, which hopefully will be played by Hugh Keys Byrne. Who acted in Fury Road as the main villain Joe, which I personally thought was one of the best villains we saw all year so far. But let me know what you personally think in the comments below. Also, on top of that, go to my channel, check out my Mad Max Fury Road movie review. If you've not seen the film, please check it out. Then come back and check out my movie review because it may contain spoilers. Nonetheless, hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. This has been John 12.